Hey, welcome to the Cam Otis Show. We're a father-son business podcast where we talk with other lifelong learners about making an impact and solving big problems. And we got RT Custer back, and you know what, RT, man, by the way, great to see you, dude. I'm excited to get back into and get an update on what's going on.
Yeah, great to be here and happy to update. And yeah, definitely been too long, and we got to do this more.
Yeah. Well, and you know, I've got my favorite show and tell watch on my military edition from, geez, 20, I think.
2020 probably. Yeah, that's
Yeah, I
our
think mine was
specialty.
2020, and it is just the coolest idea. And folks out there in radio land, you got to go to YouTube and check out RT and mine's watches, or go to their website, because it is such a cool idea that caused some problems. And one of the favorite things, because I reference y'all a lot with clients, by the way, in the David and Goliath story. Just give us a snippet of that, because we've already talked about it, but I always like, because it's such a good, it's a good guy story.
Yeah, well, thank you. It's definitely my David and Goliath story, and what you're referencing is a federal lawsuit called Hamilton v. Vortic, and we actually put together and we're documenting the story right now, and I'm writing a book about it, which has been a really fun experience. We call the book "Upcycling the American Dream: The History of Hamilton v. Vortic." And all the information about it is at vorticwatches.com/victory. But long story short, I mean, the world's largest watch conglomerate, the Swatch Group, owns the trademark on the word Hamilton. And Hamilton Watch Company was one of the great American watch companies. I call it a great American watch company because a lot of people don't know 100 years ago, over 100 million pocket watches were manufactured in the USA by those great American watch companies like Hamilton. And Vortic Watch Company takes those pocket watches and upcycles them into one-of-a-kind wristwatches. Everything on the outside is modern. We're taking the old pocket watch inside and turning it into a modern wristwatch. Like, Otis, you just shared, and I have on my wrist. Everything inside is old. Everything outside is new. It's a conversation piece. They're all one-of-a-kind. We call it the American Artisan Series. But the Swatch Group called it trademark infringement and counterfeiting. So we had a lawsuit on our hands. That started, we got the cease and desist in 2015 before we shipped a single watch. And we beat them in federal court in 2021. So that 6-year legal battle was the majority of my entrepreneurial career as Tyler and I are trying to grow Vortic Watch Company and pursue our American dream. They tried to take it away from us. And thankfully, I get to sit here and talk about it today in this building that is really the epitome of that dream, and people behind this wall are making watches today.
I want to jump into that because that's a real problem that I would say a lot of business owners deal with. Not necessarily the suit from Goliath, getting sued and the cease and desist on your idea, but this issue, this big issue that is in the back of your mind. And the way I like to think about it is it's occupying mental capacity, right? It is always there. How did you, I don't know, compartmentalize it? You choose how you dealt with that, because you were still doing the business stuff, but yet you had that in the back of your mind nonstop for 6 years.
Well, first, one of the major perks that I had, and the greatest thing that I had, I think, is a business partner. And so Tyler Wolf, my business partner, for the most difficult pieces of the lawsuit, he was making the watches and running the team and making sure, we kept the lights on back at home, while I was, messing around in New York City fighting Goliath and talking to the attorneys and all that stuff. And I kept him in the loop, but one of the best parts about having a business partner, and you guys know this, doing the show together, right? And you guys are probably, I'm going to assume, a lot closer given the father-son relationship too. But we kind of tried to stay in our own lanes and compartmentalize that, like you said, the mental load of it. And I only told him what he needed to know. And I took the burden of a lot of that stress of, you know, we have this huge thing coming up. We have a, you know, this massive legal battle, you know, in process. It's costing us a fortune. I handled all of our marketing and all of our finance, and I still do. And so I was the only one that knew how much the legal bills cost. I was the only one that knew how much, you know, the whole process was, you know, how much cash we were burning through that process. And I just tried to only tell him what he needed to know, not out of any other reason than just like, I don't want to stress anyone out, including him, but also the team, if there's just a ton of unknowns. And that's really the hardest thing about a lawsuit. And to your point, like a lot of people go through stuff like this, you know, whether it's a lawsuit or, you know, a former employee causing issues, or, you know, a manufacturing partner, or like a business partner, not a literal business partner like I have, but like somebody that you know, you have a partnership with in business, they're making part of your product, whatever. There's always going to be decent sized issues that, like, there's so many unknowns that it's not even worth talking about. You know, it's once you get closer to a final reality in these kind of things, then you can tie people in and say, hey, what do you think about this? Or should we do A or B? A lot of the law in this case, and one of the judges called this an interesting case, and she said you never want to be the defendant in an interesting case, especially when it comes to federal and almost the Supreme Court, because it has to be tried. You have to go to trial so that one judge slams the gavel and says, this is what I think, and now that becomes law. There really weren't, and there still are not, many laws and other cases about upcycling and recycling, especially in the jewelry industry and the watch industry. And so our case was really interesting, and because it was interesting, there was a ton of unknowns. We had no idea what was going to happen. We had no idea how long it was going to take. We had absolutely no idea how much it was going to cost. And so, yeah, that's really where the mental load comes from, is those unknowns. And yeah, I just tried to compartmentalize as much as I could and only share with the team and my business partner and my friends and family, like, the stuff that actually mattered, especially like when I had a decision to make and I got some feedback. And right, wrong, or indifferent, that's how we did it. And like I said, the ending of the story is good, but those 6 years were really stressful.
I bet. I'm surprised those bottles are still full behind you.
Some of them are.
Could you talk a little bit more about that balance of transparency? And I got to be careful not to throw out any specific names on this, but I know quite a few people who, whether their boss is or they as the boss, didn't walk that line very well. And, you know, you get this idea where you want to share the burden, and, you know, communication and transparency, they're all really good until you dish out so much information that no one on your team can work. Because, as you put it, RT, they're thinking about all of those unknowns. So how'd you walk that line?
Let's use a better, more like probably relatable example, because hopefully most people will never get sued by a huge company and won't have a federal lawsuit they have to deal with. A better
Fingers
example
crossed.
of that, hopefully, yeah, knock on some wood, people. Hopefully a better example of that is what my team a few years ago, and hopefully they still don't experience this, because I've learned not to do this. They called it the RT Hurricane. Every time I would come back from like a mastermind or a conference or a trade show, I would have all these ideas of like, we should do this, we should we should make this change in the product. Like, hey guys, what if we came out with this new section of the website that did this? And you know, like I had 2 customers ask for this really specific thing. Like, what do you guys think? Do you think we can do that? And I would be hyper transparent with the whole team, and it would basically, like, all these guys, they're either trying to make parts, like we manufacture our own components here, so we're making the cases and the crowns and the screws and all that stuff, It's like my job is to like make watch cases for the current product that we're currently making and we're selling. You know, the people behind this wall are our watchmakers. They're doing the final assembly, quality assurance, all that stuff. They are manufacturing and finishing and quality assurance, you know, our current product. When you say something different and you say like, what if we did this shiny object over here? What if we messed around with that? What if we talked about this squirrel over here in front of them? Even if it's just kind of like having a conversation with, and I used to do this, I'd talk to Tyler about something, but other people would be in the room listening. They're just like, okay, well, is the thing I'm doing today and spending 40 hours this week going to exist next week if we go that direction?
Exactly.
You know, are we still going to make this stuff? Like, am I wasting my time with this product? You know, I like working here, but like, you know, it sounds like the boss doesn't really know where we're headed and he's asking us for advice. Like, I don't know, man. I'm just putting the watch together. And I did that for years, and until Tyler and I had a hard conversation where he came to me and he said, you got to stop like doing this. Like, if you want someone to talk to about this stuff, come in my office, close the door, and let's sit down. And like, you can spew all your crazy ideas on me. We'll whiteboard, you know, we'll get it all out. I'll tell you that half of them are dumb and the other half are good. And then you can write them all down, and then we can like think about it, have a meeting, and then maybe tell the guys like once we've put it in the business plan. And at first I was just like, oh, so much bureaucracy. Like, I'm running a startup here. Like, I want to go fast. I want to have fun. Like, you know, I want to do cool stuff. And after, you know, a few times of doing that, you sit down and you vent and you say all those ideas. Like, I'm a visionary. So, like, as the visionary, you realize that you talk it through with an operator or an integrator like Tyler is, that, like, half these ideas are just, they're fun to talk about, but like, these are 2 years from now ideas. So it's just not worth even sharing with anyone outside of the executive team until it's like totally ready to go. And so, yeah, there is a fine line there, and there's a difference between being transparent and sharing things with your team in integrity and being really honest with everyone about what's happening now, and oversharing. And when you overshare, it creates more questions than it answers, and it creates more problems than it solves. And so I think I still struggle with that. But now that the team is a little bigger and we have different like levels and different people that do very specific jobs, that's become easier. And so the other thing I've learned to do is I'll preface the conversation and I'll say, hey, crazy idea time. What if we did this? And then during the conversation, I'll be like, just again, like, we're not going to do this tomorrow. This is like a next year thing, but like, I just wanted to see if you thought this was a good idea. If you think it's a good idea, I'll go work on it. I'll go put a plan together and I'll bring it back to you in a month or two, and then we can start working on it. Keep doing what you're doing. Great work. Thank you. You know, like, I think a lot of leaders just like plow through those conversations and it feels like a hurricane. You just like leave the people in the dust and they're like, wait, like, what are we doing? So, yeah, great question. I don't know if I'm doing it right now, but I am putting a lot more intention behind those conversations.
Yeah, well, there's such an important piece as the leader, you know, your job, and you touched on this when we were talking about the lawsuit also, is to be a conduit of information. But being a conduit of information doesn't mean you dump all the information on the team, because that does cause confusion. Your job as a leader is to be a filter of that information, and how you do that. And you also reminded me of something I started doing years ago, back when I was on the teams. Well, not on the teams. I was a staff guy with the Green Berets. Mm-hmm. But when we would do planning, we would have good idea fairy cut off. quite literally, right? Because what's a good idea fairy? It does just you called it the hurricane. I call it the good idea fairy. The good idea fairy comes in and sprinkles good idea dust all over the stuff, and you got to spend time cleaning up all this good idea dust, and it just
Let the fairy out. Come on. Keep
yeah. Oh yeah, man. I would literally put it on our planning calendar. This day here is the last day for the good idea fairy. You know,
Yep.
we ain't doing any more, no more ideas, folks, because we got to go to execution. And I wanna dive into that a bit more, because when you are that visionary, when you have that, you're that guy that's like, ooh, what if, which is so important in all business levels, not just in the startup world. But I mean, that's how corporations, multi-billion-dollar corporations, stay in business. Is somebody is coming up with the next thing. What do you do with those ideas so that, first off, your mind can relax? Secondly, so that it's there when it's like, yeah, I think we should revisit that.
Yeah, good. So, awesome question. I answer this question all the time because I run a mastermind called Fast Foundations, and we talk about what it's like to be a visionary and the difference between a visionary and an integrator, and how important it is to have, a COO to your CEO. I talk about having business partners all the time. I have a business partner in every single thing that I've ever done, and I will never not have one. I think it's so vital. And to me, as a visionary, when I just get this like download of these new ideas, it's really simple. Honestly, I use the Notes app in my phone. I have an iPhone. If you don't have an iPhone, I have no idea how to help you. But if you have an iPhone, the Notes app is like the top left on my phone, and I have there's probably 100 different notes in there that are different ideas, and I try to sort them out between different businesses. It's a total mess in there, but it's just a brain dump, and that's really the concept, is a brain dump. Wherever you best brain dump. For me, I'm having my ideas somewhere else. When I'm in my office here at work, I'm either creating content like this, or I'm executing, I'm integrating. It's very hard for me to sit and be creative. I need to go get in the sunshine. I need to travel. I need to go free my mind and let myself get to that place. I have a lot of good ideas in the gym when I'm working out. I'm just stretching after a workout, and I'm just sitting there on my phone. People probably think I'm weird. I'm just furiously typing on my phone as I'm stretching. But I'm just flushing the ideas in. And what that looks like for me is I'll put a bunch of ideas in the phone, and then I'll wait. I won't do anything with them. If I have that same idea again, the next day or at a totally separate time at a totally separate place, and I think about it, then I'll put a dash next to it, or I'll put that same idea in a more trackable system. It's okay, this must be an interesting enough idea because I've now thought about it a couple times. Once I think about it a couple times, I'll probably bounce it off one person. I have a few trusted people in my life, like Tyler, some of my other business partners, my girlfriend Lindsay. There's a safe place for me to just, hey, random idea time. You got to preface it. What do you think about this? And if they think it's a good idea and it makes sense, then I'll put it into a tracker. I use Asana for all of my project management and my to-do list. And so I put it into my brain dump in Asana, and then my brain dump in Asana becomes that to-do list or my project tracker that I can move forward with in the future. And so that's my process. Again, I don't know if that works for everyone. The other thing I will say that I've had a lot of fun with is something called Aqua Notes on Amazon, and their tagline is "Don't let your good ideas go down the drain." And it's literally waterproof notepad. It looks like sticky notes that you stick to the inside of your shower, because a lot of people have great ideas just as you're taking a shower. And it's weird to think about, but if you think about it, you probably had some good ideas just sitting there, water running over you, and you're and you don't have a pen, you don't have a pencil, there's nothing to do. So shout out to Aqua Notes on Amazon. They're $12, and it literally, it's funny. Lindsay's in my shower is just filled with these notes with random things, and we also write love notes to each other and stuff, and draw pictures, and draw with the kids and stuff like that. The kids love them. They love to draw little pictures and give it to us. So, yeah, it's how do you not lose those ideas? And then to recap, I feel like it's you only share the ideas if you have them more than one time, and you can't get the idea out of your head. Then it's probably worth discussing.
Speaking on all those good ideas, and I want to stay on this because usually this is something we touch at the end, but since we're on the good ideas already, RT, you're not going to hurt our productivity if you throw out the good ideas. I want to know, where do you see the future of watches going? We all think the smart watches and those type of things. Where do you see those trends going, and any thoughts on that?
Yeah, so I get the question of why'd you start a watch company, and are people even wearing watches anymore, and why do I need it? I get those questions all the time, and I think it's the best thing. I mean, running a watch company is so much fun. First of all, I sell something that you don't need for thousands, sometimes tens of thousands of dollars, and so I get to have those amazing conversations with customers where this is a luxury purchase. This is at best a once a year kind of thing, but realistically a once every 5 years kind of thing. And so I have such fun conversations with our customers, and our team does, because nothing is ever urgent in the watch business unless you did something very wrong. Again, we make something you do not need and sell it to you for a significant amount of money. So this is a fun purchase where we are celebrating something fun in someone's life. They're buying it for a specific reason. It's an heirloom to get handed down to the next generation. It's a gift for a wedding. It's a gift for a graduation. It's a gift for an anniversary. It's a gift to yourself because you just grew or sold your company. We're doing a lot of corporate gifts now for, COOs or business partners, or, the top salesperson of the year. A lot of people are doing that kind of stuff. They're buying a Vortic instead of a Rolex for those things, which is awesome. And so I don't see the watch industry going anywhere, and here's why. Smartwatches, people think smartwatches are taking over and everybody's going to wear a Fitbit and Apple Watch and all this stuff. That's accurate for the younger generation. So here's what's happening. People in their teens and 20s right now, they're all wearing some sort of tracker. The Fitbit, the Apple Watch, they're wearing one of these things for that purpose. In the future, and this already happens, you can make a call from your Apple Watch. That's awesome. What that's doing is it's teaching young people how to, and that they should, wear something on their wrist every single day. When those young people hit 30 or 40, they're going to be like, I kind of want this thing on my wrist to be more of a fashion symbol. I want it to be a status symbol. I want it to not vibrate every time I get a text message. I'm over it. And they're going to buy their first luxury watch, because I would say at least 50% of them aren't just going to take the Apple Watch off and then not wear anything on their wrist. They're going to see, the previous generation wearing expensive watches, seeing all that kind of stuff. And I think these young people coming in the next 10 to 20 years for our industry, they don't want a Rolex. That was their grandpa's watch, right? They don't want a Swiss watch. They know, because they've watched videos on TikTok, that they know how it's made. So and a lot of these Swiss companies aren't putting that on TikTok. They're not showing how a Rolex is made on TikTok. We're showing how Vortic watches and American watches and small watch companies are putting everything on display. I mean, heck, we put everything we do on YouTube. So they're going to go to their trusted sources, YouTube, TikTok, Instagram, and they're going to say, I want to buy a watch from the company that is the most transparent, that acts in the most integrity, that simply puts out the most content, because that's how these people get their information. Young people are not watching the mainstream media. They are not watching the news. They are definitely not reading magazines and newspapers. They are consuming content. So anyway, I don't see the watch industry going anywhere. I think the watch industry is just going to keep booming. I think people are always going to have something on their wrist. I just have to be the first in line when they make that decision on, I want my first nice watch.
Do you think, as you were going through that, one comparison that came to mind, I wonder if you would agree with this, is it almost reminds me of like thinking like music nowadays. And, you know, music, as far as like technology goes, whether it's Spotify, you know, I think of Tidal because they do the super HD quality music, all that kind of stuff. As much as that's growing, there's also people like me who have the record player out there, and it's kind of like a reverting back a little bit. Do you kind of see it like that, to where it's going to be like the two camps splitting? Do you think that's a good comparison?
Yes. So here, to me, the difference is people who appreciate nostalgia and people who don't. Well, there's going to be a lot of people who, for some reason, they don't even know what the word nostalgia means, or they don't appreciate it. But we all have something that we get that nostalgic feeling about. For some of us, it's music, and so it's like, okay, if I'm going to listen to music, I want to listen to it the way that I listened to it when I was with my grandparents. You know, like for me, that's a jukebox. And you know, my grandparents and my parents, they had jukeboxes in our basements, and I think I'm going to inherit the one that my dad has, and I don't know how I'll get it. It's this it probably weighs as much as my car. I don't know how I'll get it to Colorado. I don't know what I'll do with it, but like I have distinct memories of putting a quarter into this jukebox and pushing, you know, E1 for the Beach Boys, and it would play and it would pull the little, you know, I don't even know what they were called. It wasn't a record, it wasn't a CD, it was like halfway in between, a mini record almost, and it would come up.
The 45s.
45, yeah, thank you.
Yeah, the 45s.
So, yeah, and
yeah, I'm showing my age. That's okay.
That's okay. That's the point, though, is like we get excited about this nostalgia, and you can create nostalgia, but the best brands are the ones, I think the brands that are going to last the longest are those that literally sell nostalgia. So whoever makes that record player, you know, as Shinola makes a record player now, which is really smart. But for us, you know, I've been told for years, and I just haven't like totally gone into this, but we're working on this now, and that's pretty much everything we're talking about at this point. Is at Vortic Watch Company, we don't manufacture wristwatches. We sell nostalgia. We talk about why you should put this thing on your wrist that's, you know, 80 years old, that flew on the B-17s in World War II. Like, anyone that cares about military history is going to get a nostalgia hit from that watch, right? We sell a lot of watches to people who were born in, like, Illinois because or grew up in Illinois, because there's 3 different watch companies there: Rockford, the Illinois Watch Company, and Elgin. And half the time, like, I go to Chicago and I just say, like, the Elgin Watch Company, like, oh, my father, my grandfather, my grandmother, we had an Elgin watch. Or, you know, my father, my grandfather, whatever, they worked for the Elgin Watch Company, or they worked in Elgin, or they did this supporting thing. Like, wearing a watch reminds them of nostalgic stories, and that's why they make that purchase. So I think we all have those things, and you can see it in every industry. Video games are huge now. People are playing N64s and things like that, and like an N64 is worth more than some of the new modern video games. And if you have some of the rare ones, like, I mean, playing cards is another one, right? Playing cards just blew up. Pokemon cards are coming back. People are talking about them. I heard somebody talking about Beanie Babies the other time, you know, like, for me as like a 90s kid, like, that's a thing. Like, people have these like nostalgic flashbacks to these things. And as a brand and as a business owner, the more you can hone in on that and use that in your marketing, it's not a scheme if you're saying, like, listen, this is actually a piece of nostalgia, and this is why you should buy it. And that's how you relate to other people that buy it. And then you'll build community around your brand, because people are like, oh, I got it because I grew up in Illinois. It's like, oh, I got it because I grew up in Pennsylvania, and that's where Hamilton was. Like, that's so cool. Like, tell me about your family. Like, what did your grandpa do? Like, was it his watch? You know, like, so many cool conversations that, again, we get to be a part of, which is awesome.
Yeah, well, I can tell you this: you just proved my disappointment. If there was a Texas watch company, I'd probably own 3 or 4 of these right now.
But I hear that all the time. I hear it all the time. Did you see the Fort Worth to Denver Railroad watch that we did?
No, oh
Yeah, so
dang,
it's on the site now. I'll send it to you. It's a railroad edition, and there was a line of a Texas railroad that went from Fort Worth to Denver, Texas. When I saw it the first time, I was like, "Oh, Fort Worth to Denver, Colorado! Like this is really cool! Like this is gonna be awesome." It was actually Denver, Texas. So it was a 200-mile section of railway. But there's a lot of history there, and a lot of history in the railroads of Texas. And that railroad, it got bought by all the different railroads. I think it's owned by Union Pacific or something today. But like back then, in the early 1900s, someone hand painted FW and like an ampersand D right on the dial of this watch, and it meant Fort Worth and Denver. And they used that railroad pocket watch for that 200-mile stretch of railroad for one of those engineers. So there's always a tie-in, is what I'm saying. Like there's always cool stuff, and lots of great history, especially railroad history in Texas too, from that time period.
oh yeah. Well, and I got to do just a public service warning for myself. Miss Suzanne's not going to let you come on the show anymore, because every time you come on the show, I end up buying another watch.
I was going to say,
Like I said,
Dad, you better buy that before this
record,
episode comes out.
Yeah, no, I mean, you're gonna have to, because someone else listened to this from Texas and be like, "Wait,
Exactly.
I know. Dadgummit, folks.
No, I love that stuff. There's always a tie-in, but that's why that's why people say like we sell nostalgia, because that's like everyone has something that they care about and that means something to them, and for me, it boils down to, and that's why we're calling this book Upcycling the American Dream. Like, that's the reason we do it, is we're after the American dream. And for me, the American dream is simply freedom. It's to have the freedom to be an entrepreneur, to, work whatever job I want, to do the things that bring me joy, to raise a family, to have my house and my white picket fence, right? Like that's the visual that a lot of people say they get when I say American dream. But like, that's why I talk about the American dream so much, is to me, that's nostalgia. Like that's what, growing up, like everyone, we talk about entrepreneurship and we talk about the people. I mean, there's a whole show, like the men who built America, right? Westward expansion of the railroads, Rockefeller and, Carnegie and J.P. Morgan, right? Like there's so much nostalgia in that concept of the American dream. And when you boil it down, like, why am I working so hard? Why are we working so hard to build these companies? We make money and that's great. But like, if it was just for the money, like I wouldn't work as hard as I do now. Like I could go get a job making, I might have been one of the people that got laid off recently from these tech companies, but like I could have got one of those $250,000 a year jobs, and that's way more money than I make now. And I probably have benefits and healthcare and all that kind of stuff. But I chose not to do that because I want more. And for me, more is freedom. I get to sit here and talk to you guys on I don't even know it's Tuesday, right? Tuesday in the middle of the day, we're just sitting here talking about business. That's cool. For me, that's what I'm trying to do. And that's why we called it, the book Upcycling the American Dream, because we felt like our American dream was at risk.
Thanks for listening to this episode of the Cam Otis Show. If you're enjoying this conversation, then make sure to share it with other lifelong learners in your life so they can enjoy it too. Stay up to date with the show on Facebook and Instagram at Cam Otis Show, and subscribe to our channel on YouTube so you're the first to hear about new episodes and other special content. Now let's get back to the show.
Yeah, and that's a powerful way, because what I think the people outside of the entrepreneur community, if you will, they see a romanticized piece of it, right? the unicorns and things like that. But what makes the entrepreneur community so different is that freedom to pursue something you're passionate about to fulfill your purpose. And I think that's the uniqueness that you have when you do this. It's not. We've joked about this on the show several times about it's not the freedom that I'm going to have more time. I have less time. I mean, really,
Yep.
when you start your own business, you end up with less time because guess what? All those other things that were going on, at Acme Brick Company when you were working for them as a marketer, there was all these other people doing all the other stuff.
Yep.
When you're doing your own business, there's a lot of other things that are going on, and which gets me thinking about the whole growing the business thing, because you and Tyler started it, then you started growing, and you got a few more things, a few more people, a few more cash flow capability, a little flexibility to do different things. How do you maintain the momentum of, call it the hockey stick? We all dream of the hockey stick, hockey stick of our business revenue going up. But as it starts to go up, how do you see that maintenance of continuous scaling of the business?
Well, next for us, and it's funny, we have been referring to the starting this summer as like the start of the next chapter of Vortic. And that's when we thought back and we're like, okay, it's been 8, almost 10 years since we had the idea. So it's not really a chapter, it's the next book. So we're writing a book about what's happened so far, and that's the, upcycling the American dream like we talked about. And then the start of the first chapter of the next book, to me, is we want to become the next great American watch company. So we call, Hamilton and Elgin and Illinois and Waltham, these are the great American watch companies from the late 1800s, early 1900s, and they made some of the best watches in the world here in the USA. And most people don't know that, and so it's so fun to talk about what they did and how they did it and how many people they employed and how they perfected some of these standardizations in manufacturing, and just try to figure out how they made these things that are so tiny and so precise 150 years ago. It blows my mind every time. To me, it's like, okay, if I want to become the next great American watch company, which there's not a whole lot of competition because there aren't very many other American watch companies, or at least ones that make stuff here. But if we want to be great, then what is greatness in American watches? And Tyler has this concept that he brings up a lot when we talk about marketing and branding, and every time we hire somebody new, we start working with somebody new, and it's the more you learn about Vortic Watch Company, the more you want to buy something. The more you want to be part of our team, our community, be an ambassador of our company. And that, and we've talked about this all the time, I think is a rare thing. You look at other companies, not just in watches, but just other companies in general, and the more layers that come off the onion as you peel them away, the less you kind of want to work there, and the less you kind of want to buy their product. It's like, ooh, man, I didn't know you did that, or I didn't know that's how you made that thing, or I kind of wish I didn't know that. That takes something away. For us, we want to actively keep that vibe as we scale, which to your point is very difficult. And the way we're going to do that, long story short, is this summer, late this summer, I would say probably this fall, we're launching a Kickstarter campaign for our new products. And we're going to make watches in America again, like completely, as much as we possibly can, made in USA. And we're going to take on Shinola, which is probably the only other company that directly comes to mind in mass market for American watches. And right now, Shinola makes a product, assembles a product in Detroit that uses a quartz or a battery-powered movement for $800 to $1,000 retail price. We believe we can make a watch using an automatic movement. The movement will be assembled in America, not totally made here, but as much as we can. And we'll use an automatic movement and make all the parts here, and we'll still sell that product for $800 to $1,000, a much higher value. Because to us, the reason those American watch companies were great is because their definition of American made was different than the definition that we have today. And to me and Tyler, the definition of American made is quality. It's not necessarily that the customer cares that every single component, like Cam, that screw that came off your desk earlier, like maybe the desk was made in America, but the screw, you know, like, do you care? Like, you know, is that okay? What you care about is that it's a quality product that has value. That's really the big thing, is American made should be synonymous with quality and value. It's something that is worth every cent or more of the price that you're paying for it. And we believe we can achieve that. We believe we can get to scale with that. We think thousands of people will love that, so we can make thousands, hopefully tens of thousands of these watches made in Colorado and sell them, you know, because people hopefully will like this concept. And the reason and the way we're going to grow that and still keep our integrity and still keep like the transparency of what we do is we're literally putting it all on the internet. Because like I talked about, the next generation and our customers, pretty much everyone, when you think about it, they want to know not just who, like what company is making the product, but who is making the product. What are the people behind this? What is the process behind this? What machines do you need to make these products? Where exactly is it made? So on these new products, we're going to be ridiculously transparent and tell you exactly how we do everything. Because, again, to me, that's the difference between being great and just being an American watch company, is being ridiculously proud of the value that we are creating and the quality of the product that we're shipping to our customers. And I think, and I believe in my heart, that if we say, here's how it's all made, come and check it out for yourself. Here's a button on the website. Say, come take a tour of the greatest American watch company. I think people will do that. And I think when you finish the tour, you know, like you were saying, Otis, now we finished this podcast, it's like, oh, I got to buy a watch.
Oh, yeah.
I want to add just one thing on that I think is a super interesting piece of perspective, and I don't know what this will do to galvanize American industries or anything. But RT, what you were saying reminded me a lot of an old Freakonomics episode where they talked about German manufacturing. And how Germany was able to basically take the culture that they've had and build it into the modern age. And one of the things they talk about is the pride and the quality.
Yep.
That it's like you have this small town in Baden-Württemberg that is building this screw that goes on the Volkswagen.
Yep.
And they are all so damn proud that they build the best screw for that Volkswagen. Yep. And it ties them into the bigger picture, but it goes back to what you're talking about there of just the quality and taking pride in that quality. I think that's such a powerful thing, even on a smaller scale, like we're talking about on that. When you have that pride in your quality, people believe in it. And then you can build up that culture to, you know, make a better product, and then people believe in that, and you get that high quality product on the end that is so much better than if you're disconnected from it, right? You want everyone along the line to have pride in their process. And so I just had to point that out, because that's such an interesting little comparison there. And I think as people take pride in that stuff, you get better quality products in the end. You know, no matter what it is you're working on, if everyone along the chain there has that pride, you're going to get a better end product.
Yeah, well, and those people are going to work for your company for a long time. And that is one of the hardest things to do. We have Derek, who's probably sitting, hopefully you didn't just hear his name, he's sitting right through this wall, one of our watchmakers. I think this week he's going to make the 1,000th watch that he's made at Vortic. And just for perspective, we've probably made maybe 2,000, like 2,200 total watches in the life of the company. And this one employee has manufactured and helped us build half of our business. And obviously we're going to take care of him, and we do take care of him, and I try to remind him every time how valuable he is. But to me, that's how, like, the Germans in that town that you're talking about, those people, I bet there are people in that screw machine factory that have worked there their entire careers, you know, their entire adult life. And you don't get employee retention like that unless they're proud of what they do. It doesn't matter how much you pay someone. You can't pay them enough to be proud of what they do. It has to be earned, and that has to be fostered. And that's why I just love the way that Tyler brings it up, and he talks about it, which is, you know, the more you know and the deeper you go in Vortic and in our history and all the things that we do and how we do it, the more you're like, wow, okay, yeah, that's awesome. I want one. And that's what we're the most proud of, I think, is we're not hiding a dang thing, and we never will. And we welcome people to come and check it out for themselves. And that's honestly because when they do, it starts great conversations, and they tell all their friends. It's one of the best marketing tools we have is doing tours.
Oh yeah, yeah. I mean, I do it.
The pride also comes out in the process.
Yeah. Well, in doing that, and just as a footnote, folks, yes, I've been not to the current factory, but the old, going nostalgic to the old Vortic factory, and seen the workings there. And what you're touching on is Maslow's hierarchy of needs. We feel like we're a contribution. Not only are we part of a community in this case that you're describing, but not only are you part of a community, but you're a significant contributor to the success of that community, to the success of that tribe, to use that term.
Yep.
And I think that's such a key piece that gets lost. So many businesses, I was going to say as businesses scale, but there's small businesses that screw this up. And they're not around for very long when they do, because they're always looking for the next employee, and they treat them as numbers. One of the things that I'm really interested in more is, as you do that, and this, because I've seen businesses fail in this sense, how are you securing your values, those values that you've talked about, and when you bring that new person into the Vortic tribe, if you will, that those values are sustained?
Yeah, I think the best way that I've found to articulate our values and what we stand for and what we do to new associates is to just educate them on what we've done so far and how far we've come, and also have them do a few fun things like read our reviews. You know, when you go, I think it's just vorticwatches.com/reviews, but on every page of the website, there's a button to go over to read our reviews. We also have a ton of reviews on Facebook and Google, and almost every single one of those reviews mentions me or the person that they interact with. You know, it's sometimes Kyle, who does operations and customer service now, and we have a new person starting pretty soon. But when she starts, one of the first things I'm going to do is say, go read our reviews, because our customers use the words that we have in our values to describe us. And they do it in a review, and they do it for free. They just paid thousands of dollars for a watch, and then they went and said nice things. And the nice things that they say are what we stand for and what we do. You know, they say the word quality. They say the word, service, like excellent customer service, right? They say something about greatness or excellence or just the way they've been treated, and they talk about transparency and just how honest we were and are in this process of making a watch. And then, Tyler and I do a show, YouTube show called Custer and Wolf, Building a Watch Company, where we document. We're starting, I think we're filming on Thursday, for the season 3, the first episode of season 3. And every 2 weeks we sit down, we say, all right, what are we working on? What are we building this week? You know, who are we bringing in? What else do we need? And we don't get a huge amount of views on those videos, but that's not why we're doing it. Every person that's walked into this building, whether they're applying for a job or they're coming to do a tour or buy a watch, almost every single one of them has said, like, oh, I watched at least one of those episodes of you and Tyler talking about the company, and like, it's so cool. Like, I get to like meet you in person and like see this and all that stuff. So I really love the concept of document, don't create. I feel like a lot of people, Gary Vee says that a lot, but a lot of people, they create their values. They sit in a room, them and their business partner, the executives, and they're like, okay, what are our core values? What's our mission? All that kind of stuff. And they write it themselves, and they don't ask anyone for their opinion. Our customers and our employees are writing those words and articulating that mission and vision for us, because Tyler and I are just trying to lead by example. And again, we're not creating anything. We're just documenting what we're working on. And I think that welcomes people along for the journey with us. And it doesn't tell people, here's our values, here's why you should care, here's why you should buy a watch. You know, that's not important to us at all. I want that review. I don't want the sale. So how do we give that customer such a great experience that they write a stellar review? And as they're writing that review, they're thinking, I should buy another watch. I should buy a gift for my friend. I should get this. I should tell somebody about this. Like, this is cool. Like, I've never written, you know, most of our customers say, I never do reviews. Like, I've never written a review. Like, how do I do it? And I'm just like, I don't know. Go look at my other reviews and, you know, check it out. That's what we're working on. And I think that's the best way. And this is how we're onboarding our new associate. And it's funny. It's actually total tangent. As we were doing her final interview, she asked if it was okay to change the job title. And I was like, well, I'm not a title person. I don't really, you can call yourself Chief Customer Experience, blah, blah, blah. I don't care. But she said the job description that we put on the website was Customer Experience Specialist. And that was very intentional. I want to create an experience with our customers. You don't do sales. You don't do service. You're going to accidentally sell watches, and you're going to serve the customers. I want to create an experience with these people. And this is a new position for us. We've all kind of like shared this for years. And she asked, I want it to be called Customer Relationship Specialist. And I had already offered her the job, but at this point I was just like, okay, please take this job. Like, you're the best. And she said she had consumed a lot of our content. She'd watched, you know, she'd been following us for a little while, and she was, you know, being a really good applicant. Like, she just was trying to be a good interviewer, right? And she was just like, it seems as though I should be focused not just on creating an experience, but developing a relationship with these people. And I think that's the true answer to your question, is to sustain the values and who we are and what we want to stand for. We need our customers and our employees to hold us accountable to whatever those are, so that we can remain consistent and deliver those experiences to our customers time and time again, in order to build relationships with customers like you that really want to be a part of the team, the tribe, the community, whatever you want to call it. Now we're not selling watches. We're selling a feeling. And it's the feeling of owning a Vortic watch and supporting and investing in not just a wristwatch, but the future of American manufacturing.
That's awesome. And creating raving fans, which is, as anybody in the business world knows, that is such a key to success, is having raving fans, because they're the ones that will take their time and write a review. They'll tell their friends about it and all those sort of things. Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah, and I don't know, I see a lot of books behind you. I don't know if Super Fans by Pat Flynn is back there, if you've read that, but that's Super Fans is a great book, and it talks about that concept and uses lots of examples on how to create not just fans, not, you know, obviously customers and repeat customers is great, and you want fans, but a super fan. Like, how do you get someone that comes to everything that you do, that reads every email, you know, that you send, right? Like, we have accidentally done that at Vortic. And a lot of it's been intentional, like me sitting here thinking like, okay, what can I write in today's weekly email newsletter that's going to get people to care? You know, I'm talking about watches. There's 5 new watches this week, but like, it's the same thing as last week. There's a lot of intention that goes behind that, but I also have hundreds of people that say like, oh, I got your email last week. Like, I saw you doing that, or I read your emails every week, you know, or at least I open them and skim them, you know, like, and again, I don't know how many product-based businesses have their content actually consumed by previous customers who already own their thing. So yeah, like I said, that's why I call it the American dream. I feel like half the time I'm living a dream, because like, it's so cool. Like, it feels like such an honor to run a business like this and be able to talk about it the way we do, and surround myself with great people like Derek, who's building 1,000 watches. You know, it's amazing.
Yeah, that's awesome, and I know what you mean as a writer of a weekly newsletter or Monday Moments. Yeah, it's the same thing. It's like you get a note back from somebody, and you're like, "Whoa, really? You know, you read this? You've been reading this
so validating
for 4 years?
It's the best feeling. And I think the other thing that I think about a lot, and Tyler and I talk about a lot, is how do we change the mindset of our customer? And I think we do a really good job at this, but it's like, how do we keep our eye on the ball? And it's, how do we change the mindset from people say buying a Rolex, you know, I'm going to go buy a watch, right? Let's use a real example. A lot of people say, I'm going to go buy a watch, but I hear people say, I'm investing in a Rolex. So how do we get to that level of branding and quality of discussion and relationship with our customer, so that they say, I'm not buying a watch, I'm investing in a Vortic watch. I am investing, and that's why, I mean, when you read my emails, I use the word investing a lot, and there's some subtlety to that. For a while, I was looking for investors, and so I used that word to like kind of subtly like, I wonder if, you know. And then now I say, you're investing in the future of American manufacturing when you're purchasing a Vortic watch. And a lot of times in marketing, you got to tell people how to think and how to feel. And that's how I want my people, everyone, like the employees, my investors, literally, obviously, and then my customers. I want them to feel like they're investing in our future. And people don't invest in something that they don't care about. People don't invest in something that's not, operating in integrity with their values. And people have a much higher likelihood of investing in something if you're really transparent and you just tell them like, hey, here's what we're doing this week. And people will never invest in your company if they don't know you exist. And so you got to do things like this and put your face on the marketing and talk about it and keep sending those emails, even if you don't want to, because that's how it works. Like, you got to put in the work in order for people to give you that value back and give you their time, which is, when you talk about relationships, it's all about time.
Yeah, our most valuable asset, right? And the thing that we should be the most stingy with. Not everybody is, because they're not aware of it.
Sure.
But you should be, folks. Which is a good reminder of learning something. And man, for the first time in a while, I've got a nice simple one that I'm loving, and
I'm ready.
I'm going to Amazon. Yep, Aqua Notes, man.
Yes.
Yeah, Aqua Notes is like, that's so cool.
It's so cool.
Dang it! I wish I would have thought of that.
I know, right? Like, I wish they have like 30,000 5-star reviews. They're probably making like $100,000 a month selling this $12 thing on Amazon. Like, good for them. Oh, man. Good for them.
That's so cool. Yeah, I agree. So, Camden, how about you? What'd you learn?
Yeah, not as simple on this one, but just that, talking about transparency earlier, just that people use transparency as an excuse to not lead. Because the burden of leadership is the burden of leadership for a reason. You're supposed to be carrying that weight for your team so that they don't have to. And if you're just spilling all the information to them, sharing every little contingency, every idea, then you're no longer leading. You're dispersing that weight to them, and that's not their job, that's your job. So I thought that was really eye-opening for me.
I love that.
RT, how about you, man? What'd you learn?
Well, I have heard similar stories, but I love, Cam, when you shared the story of people making the screw for Volkswagen in a specific town in Germany, and I think the lesson or the learning that I have is I'm doing that. I'm on the path to that. I just have to keep my head down, because people associate German manufacturing with quality because they've been doing it for hundreds of years. I've been messing around with this thing for 9 years, and I give myself so much flack for how long it's taking and all this stuff, right? Like, if we want to be as good at the Germans as something, we got to keep our heads down for another decade probably, and I have to be okay with that. So I love, I love hate relationship with life lessons like that, but that's definitely my takeaway.
Awesome. Yeah, trust the process, right?
That's true.
RT, how do folks find you, follow you, meet up with you at one of your shows that you're attending?
Yeah, so vorticwatches.com, VORTIC watches.com is how to find Vortic. I am just RT Custer, like Robert Thomas Custer, Custer, on Instagram and LinkedIn. You can connect with me directly there. And then we were talking about our book. That's just vorticwatches.com/victory. And when you go to our website, right at the top of the page, there'll be a big button that says schedule a tour. That'll have tour options for our shop here in Fort Collins, Colorado. And then also you can subscribe to our email newsletter, where in the bottom of that email newsletter every week I put a list of upcoming shows, different places we're going. Next up is San Francisco, but I'm going to Chicago, New York City, and I'm sure I'll make it down to Texas at some point in the fall. So I try to get to the major places at least once a year so people can see these watches in person. But those are the best ways.
Awesome, man. Yeah, it's a whole nother world when you put your hands on one of y'all's watches. I just got to say that. So
Thank you.
Appreciate it, man. Hey, thanks for carving out some time with us today. We really appreciate you hanging out.
Oh, thank you for having me, and anytime. Happy to be here.
Awesome. Camden, run us out.
All right, thank y'all for listening to the Cam Otis Show, and a special thanks to our guest, RT Custer, for joining us today. If you enjoyed today's episode, make sure to pass it along to someone else so they can enjoy it too. Make sure to follow the Cam Otis Show on Facebook and Instagram, and you can watch full videos of the show on our YouTube page, and while you're there, make sure you hit that subscribe button too. As always, the full archive of our episodes is available at www.camotishow.com. Thanks again, and we'll